questions so far on the topic that we have discussed? I think we started on security sharing. I will just quickly give an introduction about what we spoke so far. In security and sharing, we can broadly categorize the whole module into two broad categories. One, what a user can do in the system. The second piece is what a user can see in the system. So what a user can do is nothing but it is controlled by profiles and permission set. We'll talk about permission set later, but it's done by profiles. So what is meant by profile? A profile is nothing but a set of permissions that are assigned to a user. Okay. So profile is basically a set of permissions that are. Oh, you guys can hear me, right?
Yes, Ram.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, profile is nothing but a set of permissions. I think we have seen it as well, where when we are creating a brand new profile, or if we are trying to update an existing profile, we have seen that we can control app access, tab access, object level permission, password policies, general user and system admins, administrative permissions. So we have seen a bunch of permissions. And whenever you are creating a user, like profile is mandatory. Whenever we are providing access to a user, we need to select a profile, and depending on the profile that is being selected, automatically users will get those set of permissions. Now, what is the reason why we need profile? Because Salesforce, within Salesforce, we as a company, we will be able to create multiple apps. Okay, we will be able to create multiple apps.
Hello.
And yes.
Hello.
Yeah. Who is that? Yeah, I see he's joined. All right. So yeah, that profile is nothing but a set of permissions that are assigned to a group of users. Now, what is the need? Like, why do we even have a profile? Because we need a profile in Salesforce. Within one instance of Salesforce, we might be creating one app or numerous apps. And like within that, either the single app that is being created or numerous applications that are being created, some users need to access few things and some other users need to do there will be different types of users, of course, and depending on the type of the user, they need access to specific things, and those accesses are basically controlled by something called profile. Okay. For example, I think we created a sample profile called as HR profile. So what happens whenever any user that is created, whenever we are creating a user, we basically assign that HR, like if they are from the HR department, when we are creating the profile, we assign that HR profile to that user. And, there can be 50, 60 or 100 users who belong to that profile, and automatically they will be able to perform they'll be able to do the things that their profile allows them to do. And, some of the things as we spoke are, you can see the things here, like what apps that they see here, what is the default app, like if you click on here, what are the apps that they see, within that app, what are the tabs that they see. Okay, even if we have tab, then there is something called object level permission, on the object level permission, whether they can see a new button, whether they can see edit button or not, delete button, like all those permissions, every individual, like everything is basically controlled properly by those permissions. Okay. Now for creating the profile, like if I go to setup, for creating the profile, here is how we create. We go to just profiles here. So for creating a profile like this, basically we choose, we choose an existing profile, and from there we'll try to create another one so that whatever the existing profile that we have will get copied over. We also spoke about the importance of user license. I think what is user license and what is the difference? Of course, there is platform license, there is full Salesforce license, there is chatter licenses. There are various different types of license. A Salesforce license is being the highest one, and then we have app subscription. There are various licenses, and every license has their own feature, and Salesforce costs them, the operational cost depends on number of different licenses that the company has. Because every time you create a user, they use up a user license, and of course, if the user license is Salesforce, it would be maximum cost. If it is platform, it would be less. If it is app subscription, it is even less. Now, so depending on the requirements, depending on how the usage would be, license should be selected properly. But most of the times, if it is not a brand new implementation, you might not even have to worry about what licenses that you are looking at, or mostly somebody else might be making those decisions on what license should be used. But if it is a from scratch implementation, maybe you might have to look at what license that is being used. Okay. Any questions about profile, like why we have a profile, what is the advantage of it, and how it helps? Again, I just don't want you to remember the words profile and all those things, but I just want you guys to understand, from a concept wise, it does, right? When I say, again, the same example, student and professor example that I give in either when you're doing your master's, you have your Blackboard application or any application. It's the same app. When logged in as us, you should see different things, but when logged in as professor, you see different things, and there has to be some kind of control that takes care of that, right? How does the system know that you are a professor versus the person who logged in is a student? Basically, some kind of marking have to be there. In Salesforce, we call it as a profile. And depending on the profile, we maintain those permissions. Now, why can't we maintain permissions at individual user level? Why do we have to create a bunch of permissions called profile and assign users to that profile? Because, see, if we are maintaining permissions in every individual user level, it's going to be such a administrative overhead. There are some companies where they have 100,000 users using an application, or 60,000, 70,000 users. Imagine Gmail. If you are using Gmail has basically in the free version of Gmail, they only have probably two profiles. One is end user profile, and another is system admin. Because all of us as users, whenever we enter our username and password, we see everything exactly same. I mean, when I say we see, we are able to do the things exactly same way. We are able to compose the email, we'll be able to send the email, we'll be able to we'll be able to attach, we'll be able to change the themes, change the display density settings. Those are the things that everybody can do. And there can be system admins who might be able to do more things. Okay. What if, Google will never enable permissions on a user by user basis, right? Either, that's profile. Now, record level security is nothing but, you log into your Gmail and I log into my Gmail. I will only be able to see the emails that are intended for me, that are sent to me. when you log into your Gmail, you are only seeing the emails that you are supposed to see. See, like basically both of our profile is same. Okay, we are able to do the same things, but the records that you see are different from the records that I see. Okay, whereas if I include you as CC, like if I include you in the CC or BCC, you will also be able to see the email that I'm doing something to make sure that you also get access to that email. Those are the things that are covered in record level security. Record level is like what are the records that you can see, and profile is nothing but it controls what are all the things that you can do in Salesforce. Okay, is that distinction clear? Any questions? Okay. See, we even created a user. So just to explain, I just created a user, and we assign this user HR profile. Like you see, we assign this user HR profile, and to be able to, we can log in as this person, or let me, in a separate tab, log in as this person too. Okay, so this is how a user, like this is the version of the user, like user HR, and this is the system admin version. This is how I see the app. Sorry, this is how a user is seeing it. Am I in a different place? Oh man, this is the problem with opening things in the same browser. Like, what happens now? I didn't even enter the because I opened both in the same browser, it is just taking the session ID. Like you both are coming as HR user. So here is what I'll do. Let me close this one. Okay, let me open a incognito and log in as system admin. Okay, this is the system admin view. Okay, because I use my system admin credentials to log in. You see, I see all the apps, and if you log in as a regular user, like the HR user, you're only able to see two because of the profile permissions. Okay, now let's see some other things that are in the profile. I think the other day we have seen we saw what app access can do, what tab settings, like what is default on, tab hidden, default off means. There are a lot of administrative permissions, general user permissions, and we have seen what record level access is. Like, here you can control what read, create, edit individually. Every object that you create in the system, that object would appear here. And at that profile level, you can control what kind of access. If you say, you see this, they don't have access to employee or employee salaries object. Now, no matter whatever you do, you will never be able to find employee or employee salaries for this person. Because at the profile level, if you see, they don't even have at least read access. They don't even have any kind of access. So you will never be able to find, as a HR user, when you log in, you will never be able to find employee salaries. But if I provide read, create access, or at least read access, you will be able to start seeing that object. Okay, so that's about the object level. And then we saw something about session settings and password policies. So session settings is nothing but simply this one. Like, let's say you logged in now, you didn't, if you didn't do anything for a couple hours, it would automatically log out. Okay, whereas if you put it as 24 hours, even if you don't do anything for 24 hours, just, keep the browser window inactive, like you didn't do anything, you'd still be able to refresh the page and start working on it. Okay, so that's the session timeout. If you just say 15 minutes of inactivity and save it, if you do not work on this browser or if you do not work on this window in the next 15 minutes, it will automatically log out itself. Okay, now password policies, you can see what password policies are. Like, for users of this profile, like, when users of this profile are logging in, what are the password policies that needs to be maintained? Okay, I mean, usually, and those things you can just maintain them here. Okay, so I saved it here. That's it. Now, so these are the things. Those are the things. Now, when you click on edit, those are all the things that you have on here. But at the same time, you can also have, on the view mode, you have few more other things. Okay. Of course, you can see page layout assignment. Remember, but page layouts, when we created page layouts and record types, we were able to do the page layout assignment from the object itself. We can do it from there. There are so many things here that can be done from multiple places. Okay. For example, field level security, right? Like you see field level security, when we are creating the field itself, when we are creating the field, for example, I'll go here. So in the object manager, I'll go to session object. Okay. And I'll go to fields and relationship. Let me go to this city field. And if I click set field level security, here we are saying which profile, like you see HR profile, what kind of access should HR profile have for this field? What kind of access the system admin profile should have? Should it be visible or should it be read only? If it is visible, user will be able to edit it. Like if it is marked as visible and read only, user will only be able to see the field but will not be able to edit it. So these are all the things. While creating the field, you can control them, or even after the field is created, then you can come here and control it as well. Or like right on the profile itself, when you are on the profile, let's say if you go to session object, you see for this profile, for all the fields on this object, what is the access level? Okay, you see right now agenda field, there is no access at all. So let's take this agenda field as the example. Okay. Now I go to here. Oh, sorry. I go log in as this person. In the conference management, you see, I go to click. You see, I don't even see the agenda field here. Because at the profile level, this HR profile doesn't even have agenda field. Okay. Now what I'll do is, I'll go as system admin to this, to the profile, and I'll mark it as read and edit. For this agenda field, I'll mark it as read and edit and save. So now if I go back, and click new, you see, you're seeing the agenda field here. Okay, previously you weren't able to see it, but because now I have provided the access to this user profile for this field, you're able to automatically see it. Now, so how can you control the visibility of the field? You can control it on the page layout. You can remove the fields from the page layout and you can control it, or you can also control it by field, at the profile level by using field level security. Okay. Now let me click edit. and just mark it as read-only access, not edit access. I'm just marking it as read access. Let me just refresh this. I click new. You see, agenda became only readable. It's not like, you don't see edit access. Okay. So because of the permission here, because I only provided read access, the user is only able to read the content on it, but unable to make any changes to it. Okay. So that's the power of profile. Like every granular level, every individual single field level as well, profile controls whether you can edit the, whether a certain field can be editable, a certain field can be marked as just readable, certain tab is visible, a tab is hidden, or an app is visible, or what is the default tab, default tab. Like there are so many things. What are the password policies? All the things are controlled by profile. So that's why, whenever we have new requirements, we will talk about, okay, which profiles should have access to it. And one other thing, right? What happens, right? One of the common mistake that everybody does, it's not a mistake, common overstep what everybody does is, while developing things, for example, I develop in my sandbox. Okay, sandbox is nothing but the test environment, as you guys know. When I'm developing it, I just create an object, I create a field. So while creating the field itself, remember, while creating the field, usually we accept all the defaults and we save, everything works great in my sandbox. And then I deploy my changes from my environment to like my sandbox, my test environment to another test environment where, testing team will test those changes. Okay. So what happens? They will complain, hey, this field is not visible. I'm unable to access this field. What happened? Okay. So we might have moved the object fields and everything, but we might not have moved the profile permissions. Okay. So we need to make sure. So whenever that happens, we need to make sure that we are moving the profiles and profile permissions as well to the target environment to ensure that, the security is properly maintained. Otherwise, same thing, in one environment, you might be seeing something, but in another environment, you might, when you log in as the same user, you might not be seeing stuff because in one environment where you are developing, you might have provided the profile permission for those fields, but in the target environment, you might not have provided the profile permissions, just to make sure, we need to control this stuff, or we need to make sure you're moving those changes as well. Okay. Now, let's see other permissions as well. Okay. So let's go to the same HR profile. You see the field level security for every object, every field can be controlled from here. Of course, we saw the custom app settings. Don't worry about the connected app. We saw the tab settings. We saw the record type settings. While creating the record type itself, we have an option, but we can also control the record type settings from here. We have administrative permissions. We have general user permissions, object access, standard object access, custom object access, session settings, and password path. These are all the things that we can do here. Now, when in doubt, just check the profile. If somebody is saying, hey, I'm testing as this user, but I'm unable to see something, or I'm unable to save some data, or unable to see the field. Like when you are faced with those kind of issues, or when you are faced with those kind of questions, you just need to ask, okay, which user are you testing as? When they say the user, I'm testing as this user, I'm logged in as this user, you can always check which profile that user belongs to, come to the profile, and, just check whether the permissions are there or not. Okay. One thing that have to be remembered, recently this happened to me. That's why I'm just cautioning you. See, when you're developing something, right, when you are working on a module or when you're working on a project, if something is being asked of you, okay, you you create that feature, you build that feature, you enable the permissions, you make sure everything is good. Somebody will test it and says, okay, everything is great, move this to production. So when they say move this to production, it's our responsibility, or it's your responsibility to make sure that the changes move into production and the right permissions also move into production. Okay, that's most of the times as a developer or as an admin, people worry about how the feature works, but once the feature works, people forget the fact that the permissions related to it should also be moved from one environment to another. And sometimes when you don't do that, things work fine in one environment and they don't work properly in another environment. Okay. Now, okay. So we saw all these features. General and administrative, we didn't really see them. But usually, whenever some permission is not enabled or something have to be seen, we just we just Google the permission that needs to be provided and check those checkboxes. Okay. Now let's talk about login hours. Okay, what are these login hours? So login hours are nothing but which you can control when your users can log in. For example, we are working on HR profile, right? Okay, your company has strict guidelines that everybody should be working only between morning 9 a.m. and evening 5 p.m. Okay, they shouldn't be logging or touching in Salesforce after 5 p.m. and before 9 a.m. So your company has rules like that. So what would you do? You click login hours and you will enable, okay, Monday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Sorry, that's Sunday, but Monday 9 a.m. to 5, Tuesday 9 to 5, Wednesday 9 to 5, Thursday, Friday 9 to 5, and you hit save. So when you hit save, because for this profile you set the login hours as 9 to 5, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they will only be able to log in between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Okay, they will not be able to log in after that. If they try to log in after that, system would throw an error saying your administrator have not enabled the permission, so you will not be able to log in. Okay. Now, can you tell me if, let's say, you want your users to work Monday 9 to 5, Tuesday 9 to 5, Wednesday 9 to 5, Thursday 9 to 5, Friday 9 to 5, but Saturday and Sunday, you should not allow any user to log in. What would you do? How would you do that? Is there any option? All I see is start time and end time. Okay. So how would you ensure your users are only, if your requirement is the HR team or the HR profile user should only be able to work from Monday to Friday 9 to 5, and Saturday and Sunday they should not be able to log in or they should not be able to access Salesforce. How would you control that?
Start time and end time the same.
Sorry, start time and end time?
The same, 12 a.m., the same time.
That's good. Yeah. So if you put, if you put start time is 12 a.m. and end time also 12 a.m., good. So that means both are 12 a.m. and 12 a.m. The start time and end time are fine. So they will not be able to log in at all in the system. It doesn't matter 12 a.m. It can be anything. 3 a.m., 3 a.m. If both start time and end time are same, that means user will, during that day, on Saturday, user will not be able to log into the system.
And
okay.
Shravan,
Yes.
So let's say our user base is across the globe. So how does the time zone comes into place? It will be specific to the user created in the time zone?
Yes, not user created in the time zone, but if you look at this user profile, right? You have, for example, I am here. If you look at language and time zone, when you are creating the user itself, you see the time zone here. You're setting the time zone here, right? It depends on the user's time zone that is set on their user record. When you're creating a user, for every user that you are creating, you will have the option to set the time zone. Okay. So right now I changed my time zone to Eastern time zone. So because I changed my time zone to Eastern time zone, if I am looking at any record, all my time would be considered in Eastern time zone. Previously, my time zone was in Pacific time zone. So any record that we are creating, all the things should be displayed in Pacific time zone. But we need to remember one concept with respect to dates and times. See, ultimately in the database, in the backend, like in the database, if you query, the data is always stored in GMT. Because see, these time zones are just relative. All the times and everything is relative. So in the database, in the backend, like in the database, the time is always stored in GMT. But in the front end, in the UI, depending on the time zone that we have, Salesforce automatically, depending on the time we have, Salesforce automatically parses the time and shows it to us in the time zone that we are in. If my time zone is Eastern, it will automatically do the calculation. Okay, Eastern is, I think, 5 hours different from GMT. So it would add or remove the hours and it automatically shows the time in the time zone. The same record, if you look log, if your time zone is Pacific time zone, the same record, if you're looking at it, it would show that in your time zone. Okay? So
okay.
for your question, the answer is this one.
So the login hours which we are entering, like Monday to Tuesday, those are specific to our time, like whatever the EST.
Okay, let me enter something here. You see, now the login hours are dependent on the company's time zone. So in the company information, right, you have this default time zone. What is the company's time zone? So the login hours depend on the company time zone that you have here. So when I'm putting 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. there, or 5 to 7, this is because the company's time zone is Pacific time zone. The login hours that are set at the profile level will, the company's time zone will be taken into account. Okay. Yeah, but on the user records, it depends on the user time zone that you have. But on the, in things like this, it would take into account the company time zone, the company local settings that we have. Okay, that's good. Now, one other thing that you need to notice, this happened to my in my first project. Never ever set login hours for system admin profile. Okay, so here is what happens. Whenever we have huge deployments, right? Like when I say huge deployments, we built a brand new app, or we customized too many things in one of the apps, and we decided we want to go live with those. Okay, so when we decide we want to go live with those, what we will want to do is we will send out a communication saying, hey, we made all these changes. We are gonna go live Friday evening at 5 p.m. So please do not log into the system, and if you log into the system, you might see some glitches. So we send a communication, but at the same time, we want to make sure that no user is logging into the system when we are deploying. I mean, that doesn't have the, usually regular deployments can happen even when users are logged in. But if you have a huge deployment, there are a lot of data changes that needs to be done. If you have so many things that needs to be taken care of, then you would use something called as, you would have to shut out, you would have to prevent users from logging into the system. So when you would have to prevent users from logging into the system, you will set these login hours. You will, let's say Friday is your release, right? You come Friday, whenever, right 1 minute before your deployment start, you will just say 5 a.m. and 5 a.m. and save it. Okay, it doesn't matter which time it is. You can set it whatever time it is, because the start time and end time are same. Nobody will be able to log in on during that period. So this way you can keep users away from the system while your deployment is going on. So one day what happened? So in my first project, this is not me. One of my colleagues, he has done this. So we wanted to lock out. We were doing a deployment. It's a huge deployment. So we wanted to lock out the users from logging into the system. So what he did was he just went here, like he went to profiles. Okay, he just clicked on, right clicked and opened the profiles like this. He opened the profile like this. He opened we have like around 10 profiles that needs to be logged out. So he just right clicked and opened the profiles like this in different tabs. And he kept on going, he went to login hours, said, put it as 5, next tab. He just went on that. And, one of the tab, there was system administrator profile was there as well. So even for system administrator profile, that was enabled and everybody logged out. Okay. So now, until Saturday comes, because Friday is logged out, right, for everybody, until Saturday comes, not even system admin will be able to log in, but we have this huge deployment planned, user communication, and everything is sent out saying that, the deployment will be done and users will be able to get back into the system in next 3-4 hours. And, we have this communication, everything is sent out, and now everybody is logged out. So, we had to involve our manager. He has to talk to the account manager in Salesforce. We raised this as a priority request with the account manager. They considered the request. They contacted the Salesforce support team, and they were able to go in and clear out the login hours for system admin profile, and we were able to log in and proceed with the deployment. But again, luckily, everything happened within 30 minutes. We were in luck that happened. But sometimes, luck might not be on our side, and we might not be able to, contact Salesforce, get them involved, and do all those things. That's why when you're touching login hours, please make sure you're not doing the same for system admin profile. Okay, I had to learn it the hard way, but usually I think not every company does this locking out user thing. But some companies do it. Like in the place where I currently work, we never lock out users, especially by using login hours or anything. We just send a communication asking users not to log in during that time, but we don't prevent users from logging in by setting the login hours. Okay. But again, if the company that you go have a policy of preventing users from logging in, make sure not to enter login hours for system admin profile. Okay. Now, so here is the thing. Then comes, you can control login hours. Okay. Then comes login IP ranges. Okay. The login IP ranges are nothing but you can control what are the IP ranges that a user can log in. For example, you have a requirement where, even Salesforce is a cloud application, of course, but you don't want your users to be maybe this is a highly secure application that you guys are working on, and you don't want your users to be accessing Salesforce outside your office premises. Okay. So what you can do when you click, you can enter the start IP range and end IP range. How, it's just, if I just type in what's my IP, you get an IP range. I don't know why this is crazy IP, but usually you get a neat one. So when you click what's my IP, you get an IP range. So you can type in a start and end IP. Like if you have your company's network, your company might have your the IP range. If you enter the start IP range and end IP range, so users with this profile will only be able to log in within those IP ranges, like within that company premises. If they try to log in from other, you can prevent them. And again, there are other things as well, sometimes I think we need to look into those rules where if your IP is not enabled, Salesforce will challenge you with, with a question, they will send a token to mobile. You need to enter the code, but if the IP is whitelisted, Salesforce will not ask that. There are things like that, but just remember, you can use login IP range to be able to enable some restrictions from the location where the user login from. Now, my thing, here is what I'll do usually. You're not supposed to do this, but usually if I'm working in my sandbox, So if I put this, like I just put 00002, this is the login IP range that I put in. I mean, for my own sandboxes, okay? I never do this in production, but for my own sandbox, that too on system admin profile. So all the IP ranges that exist always fall between, like this is the most least starting range, and this is the highest. So any IP address range that you have will always fall between these IP range. So when I do this, technically what I am saying is, I'm whitelisting all the IP addresses in the whole world. That means I'm just saying, user can basically log in from any IP range and we don't care. Okay? So now look at this. If I have this 00 enabled, let me log into data loader. If I go to data loader, oh, sorry, I put it for HR profile, right? So this is for HR profile, I put it as 00. Let me do it for system admin profile. So for system administrator profile, I go to login IP ranges, and I'll just put okay. Now I only enter my password. Oh, sorry, did I change my password? You see, I didn't enter my reset security token. All I entered was my username and my password. I didn't enter the security token, and I'm still able to log in because I set my IP range, I'm whitelisting. I'm saying, hey, I trust any user coming from this IP range. I'm letting Salesforce know, hey, if a system administrator you profile, like if a user with system administrator profile is trying to log in between these IP ranges, just allow them. I'm trusting them. I'm whitelisting this IP range. Just allow them. Now, what did I do? I just put in the IP ranges 0000 to 255.255. So that means I'm just whitelisting all the IP ranges. I'm just saying, hey, I trust all my system admins. Okay? If they are logging, if my system administrator is logging in, just log them in. Don't worry about extra level security or anything. See, that's why when I'm trying to log in, it's not even asking me for security token. Remember, otherwise when we are using data loader, system would ask you for security token, right? But here, system will not even ask you for security token because the IP range is whitelisted. And now look at other things. Let me go to my settings. Settings here. You see, you don't even see the reset security token option. Like previously, you were able to see the reset security token option, right? Now I'm unable to even see the reset security token option because my IP range is whitelisted. Okay, like let me go to system administrator profile again. So because my IP range is whitelisted here, okay, I'm not even seeing the, you see, I'm not even seeing the reset security token option here. Otherwise, I would see it. Whereas, let me go and delete this IP range again. Okay. Now, let me go and refresh. You see, I see reset my security token option. I see because my whitelist, my IP range is not whitelisted. So if I go again here and put that 0.0, okay, if I do that and go here, I wouldn't even see that reset security token option. That means I don't need that security token. I don't need that additional security information. I'll be able to log in from basically any IP range. Okay. So this is a funny story. The reason being, so in the first company that I used to work for, we didn't have this, whitelisting IP range system at all. Like we didn't have this whitelisting IP range. So whenever I had to use data loader, I have to reset my security token and use my security token to be able to perform the data load. Now, I came to this company. Like, it's been 1 year I worked on my first job. Then I came, I moved on from there, and I came to this other job. And then on day one, they asked me to do some data loading. So when they asked me to do some data loading, I'm like, oh, okay, easy. I'll do the data load. And then I opened my data loader. I typed in my username and password. I type in my username and password. I come here and look for reset security token button, and I cannot find the reset security token button. I was banging my head. I'm like, why the heck I'm unable to see reset my security token? And because it's my first day, and I thought because data loading was a simple thing, I was a little bit embarrassed. If it is now, I wouldn't even waste a second. I would ask, hey, why am I not seeing this button? But it was still in the starting days of my career, so I was like a little embarrassed. What would people feel if I ask that I'm unable to see this reset security token button? Like, would they feel like that I don't know anything, or like I was a little embarrassed to ask. But I couldn't understand, and I was unable to finish the data load. But then, I did some, I just Googled unable to see reset security token button, and like now they documented it. But before, at that point, this was like 5-6 years ago. At that time, it wasn't documented well. But somewhere there was some person in their blog or something they have written that if you have your IP ranges enabled, you will not be able to see the security token, but when you click login, it would automatically go in. But you see the stupid thing that I done? I entered my username and password. I never clicked login. Like, because I know I have to put my security token after the password. I've not even clicked login. If I click login, it would have been like login successful, and I would be like, okay. But I wasn't even clicking login. I was looking for security token there. Then I realized, okay, in this place for system admin profile, they enable this 0 dot, like 0 to 255, basically to avoid this, getting the security token, preventing, getting a mobile code or Gmail code asking to verify the number by that extra security token, whereas they enable 0000255, that IP range. The system admins will be able to log in basically from anywhere, and they wouldn't need that double security. Okay, so I'm just explaining this to you because when I was teaching data loader, I told you guys you need to enter your password, and then without space or anything, you need to enter your reset security token. But if you go to a place where they have this IP range enabled, you might not even see the security token. In that case, you should just straight click on login, or you can just confirm it with this IP range. Because I've seen many companies doing this for system admin profile now, because they trust the system admin and they want to save that time. So I've seen many people doing this. So just make sure if you are in that situation, do not panic. And don't be embarrassed to ask the question. Like, if I join a company tomorrow, if I don't see the security button like that, I wouldn't waste a second thinking about it. I'll ask somebody, hey, I'm not seeing reset security token button. Why do you think so? And they'll be able to answer it. I didn't have to waste 30 minutes or 1 hour to be able to get that answer. Okay. But again, since that was initial days, I was in the impression that people would judge me for the stupid question that I might have asked. But there are no stupid questions in the world, especially in IT world. There are no stupid questions at all. You can ask anything. Okay, so that's about login hours. Oh, let's go back to our HR profile. So that's about login hours, login IP ranges, and then these two are important too. Visualforce page access. These don't worry about it much. We rarely use them, but these two are highly used. Like what happens is when you build custom Visualforce pages, right? You need to make sure to provide them access here to those pages. Otherwise, users will not be able to, users will get no permission or access denied error. I'll show you this again when we build some Visualforce pages. Or when we build a lightning component, and if you have, I'll show you where we have to enable the Apex class access for that. I'll show you those things. But for now, just remember that you can control like, Visualforce page access and Apex class access as well. Okay. So this is one of the common question. What is a profile in Salesforce? And you should be like, profile is a set of permissions that are intended for mass users, that are intended for a group of users. And the profile controls app settings, tab settings, administrative permissions, general user permissions, session settings, password policies. It controls Visualforce page access, Apex class access, login hours, IP ranges, tab settings, field level security, record type access, all these things. Every little piece is basically the security is controlled by profile. Okay. See, one thing you need to realize, like, it's such a great thing that's done by Salesforce, right? Now imagine this. In applications like .NET or Java, where we write or where we build our own applications, we should be controlling everything ourselves. Like here, we have this thing called profile where we are just checking some checkboxes. Hey, you know what? I create a profile. I assign a profile to this user. I check this checkbox to enable field level security. I uncheck this so the user will not be able to see the field. I give permission to this. I set the login. It's like, we are basically doing a lot of things just by configuration. Whereas if imagine these features are not there, like, if you are building your own .NET or Java application, you need to, like, as developer team, we need to make sure to enable all these, customize, configure all these ourselves to achieve these results. But Salesforce has this framework where, they are enabling us. They are enabling us to do this stuff. Okay. Now, let's talk about permission sets. I think I've said there are two things: what a user can do and what a user can see. And what a user can do, we have profile, and then there is a concept called permission set. Okay. Let's say what a permission set means. Now, remember, profile is nothing but profile is intended for mass audience. When it's a mass audience, like in HR team, okay, let's say in HR team, there are 50 people. The HR department has 50 users, okay, and all these 50 users have HR profile. Good. Like, everybody will get all the same permissions because of this profile. But, you got a request that says, you know what, in HR, there are two people. They are like the HR bosses, they are HR boss, and they need, just those two people need some additional permissions, to be able to delete them. Like, let's take this as an example. It's just a hypothetical example. Let's just take this. So now you see here, we have, this is our HR profile, right? Okay, this is our HR profile. Like, what we have here is, we have on the session object, we have read, create, edit, but we don't have delete permission. Okay. So that's why if I go in as a HR user, I'm able to edit it, I'm able to read it, but if you see, I'm unable to delete it. Okay, I don't see delete button. Why do I not see delete button? Because at the profile level, for HR profile, for session object, only read, create, edit is there. Okay, delete permission is not enabled. Now, if I enable delete here, like, there are, in the example I spoke, if I enable delete here, because, there are two people in the HR department who are like high level people, and they should have the ability to be able to delete these session records as well. Oh, because they should have this ability. If I just check this checkbox called delete, what happens? All the 50 users or 100 users or 1,000 or 10,000 users, whoever have this profile, everybody will get this delete permission. Everybody will get this delete option enabled. Okay. So I cannot make the change at profile level, because profile is intended for mass audience, like a lot of people. So now, but we have this requirement that says, only two people in this HR wanted to do that. So what we do, we create something called, you see here, we create something called permission set. Okay. So I'll just say new I'll name the permission set as delete session perm set. You can, being a good student, you should be able to write the description and everything. I'll just save it. And then I go to object settings. Again, permission set also contains the same permissions, exact same permissions as profile. So I go to object setting, I go to session object. Okay. I enable this delete permission. Okay. I enable the delete permission for this. So I went to session object. I just enable the delete permission for this session object. Okay. Now nothing happens. So far it's all same. I just created the permission set. I didn't even do anything. So I created the permission set called delete session perm set, and I enable delete permission for that. Now what I'll do is I go to the user, I go to the HR user, and then you see in the permission set assignments, you see the permission on the top on the user record. If you go to, then there is edit assignment. Oh, sorry. What did I say? Is it permission set? Yeah, permission set. Yeah, on the permission set assignment, you see delete session perm set. There is a permission set called delete session perm set. I assign that permission to this user. You see, this user belongs to HR profile, but this person has an additional permission set called delete session permission set. Now, if I refresh this screen, you'll see the delete button. Okay. So now what is this permission set? Permission, I gave you one example. It's the same thing. Permission set has all the permissions like a profile, but permission sets are intended for individual users. Okay. So what is the difference? When you create a user record, the moment you create a user record, a profile is mandatory. You have to have a profile for a user to be created. Okay. You created the profile. Through profile, a user inherits lots of permissions. Now you need to make some additional permission. You cannot lower the, you want to extend, more than the permissions that are obtained through profile, you wanted to provide an additional, couple of additional permissions to some individual users. Not like everybody, you want to provide those additional permissions to individual users. So what would you do? You create a permission set, you assign those permissions to that permission set, whatever additional permissions, extra permissions that you want, you give those permissions to that permission set, and then for whoever users they wanted that permission, that special permission, you will just assign that permission set. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. You see, permission sets will never reduce the access. Okay? Permission sets will always provide more access than whatever profile is giving. Permission sets can never be used to reduce the access. Always remember that. You have a profile. If there are certain users, they got certain access through profile. But if the profile, the access that they got through profile were not sufficient and they needed some expanded access, you create a permission set and then you assign that permission set to those individual users. Okay? So that's why permission set is at individual user level. If you want, can you not assign the permission set to 50,000 users? Of course you can do that. But the intention is profile is for example, I'll just give you an example. In my current project, right, we only have 2 profiles. We don't have multiple profiles at all. We only have 2 profiles called full service tracking and something called DSP user. Okay, we only have 2 profiles, major profiles. So we have 30,000 users. Among the 30,000 users, 20,000 users have this full service tracking profile and 10,000 users have a different profile. Okay, but among these 20,000 users, I'm sure there are some users that work on different things. There are some other users that work on different things. So what we do is we use that profile. We use the full service tracking profile to give common permissions that every user should have. All the common permissions that every user should have, we put that in the full service tracking profile. Now, depending on, some users work on incidents, some users work on some other things, some users work on workflow. So depending on which users work on what module, we have a workflow permission set, we have an incident permission set, we have HR permission set, we have like different permission sets, and a single user can have multiple permission sets too. So we just assign those permission sets to the user. Okay, so I mean, one of the most common question, or most widely asked question is, hey, what is the difference between a profile and a permission set? So a profile, a profile is mandatory when a user is being created. Its profile is a set of permissions that are assigned to a user, but the intention of the profile is to, we create a profile, one profile, and we assign that profile to multiple users. That's the intention of profile. Whereas permission set is nothing but, if there are some users that need extra permissions, you create a permission set and you assign that permission set on top of the profile. Okay? It's like permission set is like top. I think the top of profile gave me an example. It's like, the calling plan. If your phone has a calling plan, you will basically have a monthly plan. But if you want to call United States, you will have a top up on top of it, right? With the regular plan, you get few things, but if you want to do some special things, you top up with something, right? In the same way, even here, your profile will enable you certain permission, but if some if some individual users need additional permissions on top of what profile is giving, then you create a permission set and you assign the permission set. Okay? Now, sometimes, sometimes this question comes up where the profile has read, create, edit, delete. Can we use permission set to control a couple of users to only have edit access? Okay, or let me ask you this question. So there is a scenario where we have 100 users. We have 100 users belonging to HR profile. Okay? Among the 100 users, 98 users need read, create, edit access to something. Only 2 users need read, create, edit, and delete. Okay? How can we solve? There is let's say, account object. On account object, there are 100 users that belong to a profile. 98 users need read, create, edit, and 2 users need read, create, edit, and delete. So in this scenario, what we will do at the profile level, we will provide read, create, edit, and we create a permission set called delete account access permission set, and then we just assign it to 2 users. Okay. Now, whereas the other way around, is we have 100 users, 98 users among those 100 need read, create, edit, and delete. Only 2 users need read, create. 98 users need read, create, edit, delete. Only 2 users need read, create, and edit. Okay. If there is a scenario, would a permission set be able to solve this scenario? No, because permission sets always expand the access, but they will not be able to retract the access. Okay, so even if the other case where you have 2 users that need read, create, edit, but 98 users that need read, create, edit, and delete, either you need to talk to the business, get a compromise with them saying, hey, you know what, we will enable delete for them too. But if your business is adamant, no, we need this the way that is asked for, you need to create the profile level with read, create, edit, create the permission set with delete access, and assign the permission set to these 98 users. Okay, that's the only way to do that. There is no other way around. Okay, so just don't be confused that you can never use permission set to restrict access. You can always use permission set to expand access on top of what you're getting through profile. It's like this again. You don't pay extra money to a cellular network provider to get less features than what your basic plan offers, right? It's the same thing. You can never create a permission set to reduce the permissions that your profile is giving. No, you cannot do that. Your permission set will always provide you either extra access or at least the same level of access that your profile is giving, but it will not reduce your access. Okay? So sometimes that's why if you're debugging this, most use cases would be people will say, hey, this, they will say, hey, my colleague is able to see the delete button, but I'm not able to see the delete button. Can you tell me why? We both are same profile. Everything is same. But you need to check while debugging that, you need to check, okay, what are the permission sets? Like, okay, whether two users belong to the same profile or not. Yes, whether they belong to same profile. Now let's go and check the permission sets, whether two users belong to whether both the people have same permission sets or one of them have additional permission sets or not. If one of them is seeing an additional button and the other person is not seeing that, yeah, absolutely, either profile or permission set would have been different. Okay. Any questions, anybody? Right. Any question? I think it's really important because see, no matter where you go, like you will there are no other things. Every day your life will be on. Okay, this is the profile that has issue. This profile does not have issue. This is the permission set. Did you assign this permission set? Did you create? This will be the language that you will be living in. Okay, so that's why it's really important to understand what they do.
Shravan?
Any yes.
Let's say we develop some Visualforce page and something. There are some buttons on it. I mean, even in the standard page also, there are some buttons. We want some users to see the edit button. Some users don't see the edit button. Like that also we can control on the profile level.
Yes, absolutely. Like the edit button, right? Edit button means nothing but you have edit access, right? Let me show you that. So if I go to, like now you are seeing edit. Like I'm logged in as HR user, you see? I'm logged in as HR user. Okay, you are seeing the edit button.
These are like standard edit, right? So what I mean to say is like instead of that edit, sharing and those 4 buttons, there are some extra buttons. For whatever purpose maybe. So can we control the access to that button?
No. Those things, like if you are like what you meant to ask is, you will create some custom buttons apart from the read, create, edit, and those buttons. You create some custom button that will allow to the user to navigate to a different page. Things like that. No, you cannot control those button visibility depending on the profile. Those custom buttons, you cannot control it depending on the profile level.
If we like, if there is a requirement like, so certain profile users can edit the custom page, but certain profile users cannot. So in that case, like how should we handle it?
So if it is a custom page, when I say custom page, if it is a Visualforce page or if it is a Lightning component, like Lightning app page, like if we are building the page and Salesforce is not giving it out of the box, it's not the page that we are building a custom page. We can do anything. We can do this profile, that, like we can do anything, showing the button, hiding the button. We can do basically technically anything that you ask for. But if it is a standard page, we don't have an option. Like, either like if you say one profile should be able to use that button, the other profile should not be able to use that button, you need to probably create 2 different page layout, assign one page layout with the button to one profile and assign the page layout without the button to another profile. But if you see, both should be same. It's just that some people, like, some profile users should be able to see that button. Some profile should be, like, if page load is not an option and you don't want to create those 2 new page load just for the sake of that functionality, you would have to live with the button, but you can write rules. Once the button is clicked, right? Like, you will write the button, and that button, what would you do? You will enable, like, on click of that button, either you will call a Visualforce page or you will call a Lightning quick action, like, Lightning component. So in that you can say, hey, because the component or the page that you are going to call from that button is going to be a custom page, in that you can write saying, for, like, you can check what the profile is and you can just throw an error message saying, hey, you do not have necessary permissions to use this button. Whereas when the other profile where you want the button to be functional, when they click it, you can proceed with the action that you want. So that's one of the common use case that comes up. I mean, that's always a fight between the developers and BAs. So they will always come up and say, hey, I need this button here, but that button should be visible only when some status is something, or that button should only be like, we only have one page, we will have one page layout on the object, but they will come and say, you know what, we need a button, but if this user with this profile and this role is there, the button should appear, but otherwise the button should not appear. They always come up with those scenarios, but the standard page layout will not be able to solve. And the good compromise that we always talk to the BAs would be, yeah, the button will be visible, but when they click the button,
So
whether to execute the action, we
the
control.
profile, we can control that. Do that.
Which one?
I mean, depending on the user profile, we can control the button action, like whether he wants
Button
to.
action, yes.
Yeah.
We can control the action, but we cannot control whether the button is visible or not unless you have two different page layouts.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. I mean, the requirement sometimes will be a little bit like, business thinks it's very easy. What they say is, like if two users are there, two users will have the same profile, okay, but one user, one user will be some leader, will be mentioned as a leader. That means, that user will be mentioned as, let's say, owner. Like, let's say this one. Let's take the example of this one. So there are two users. Two users will have the same profile, but they'll say, hey, you know what? If the current user, the logged in user is account owner, show this button. But if the person is not the account owner, do not show this button. Now, you see, they are both same users. Both have same, same users means two users, both have same profile. So that means even if you create two different page layouts, you can only, because the profile is same, the page layout will also be same for them. But depending on the data, they want to control the button visibility. We can absolutely not do that. But on click of the button, we can control the action, how it's executed. But if it is a custom page, it's up to us. We can control in so many different ways. Okay. Any question, guys, on profiles and permission sets? Again, the goal is not to, remember or just keep everything in mind, like all the things that the profile control, but at least understand the concept that, okay, there is a concept of profile that exists. Whenever there is a user that is created, they will be assigned with the profile, especially like us. When we signed up, Salesforce automatically have assigned us a system admin profile. Okay. Now, you might have your Salesforce instances. Try giving access to one of your friends, to the Salesforce instance that you have. Try giving access to one of your friends by creating a profile. Don't give them system admin access. If you give system admin access, they will have the same thing like you. But try creating a user with a different profile and, log in using their credentials. Log in using their credentials into the system and see the change, how they are able to see the system versus how we, as a system admin, you are able to see the system. Okay. That's profile and permission set. It's like a top up on top of profile. And, profile is always intended for mass, like a lot of people. Permission sets are intended to make exceptions to individual users. So from tomorrow, we will start record level security. It's easy, but, unless you are faced with some scenarios, things wouldn't become clear. But unless you focus on those topics, I've seen so many people. I've seen so many people who might be working for 5-6 years now, but they do not have clear clarity on what a record level security is because, they never got a chance to look into some use cases related to that. But it's an interesting topic. It's really an interesting topic on how Salesforce controls the record level security, and it's such an important topic too. So yeah, we'll start record level security from tomorrow. Okay. And anybody, did any of you sign up for any certifications? I think, I mean, see, we are at a place where we can probably start looking into maybe app builder, platform developer one, and admin. The good thing with certification, right? The good thing with certification is, you know, there might be so many, like, you know, there might be so many things where we are reading in one dimension, but when you are preparing for certification, when, you know, when the brain is challenged with different line of questioning, we will get more understanding of the concept. Okay, so just sign up for that, and I would suggest not to go into the market without having those certifications. I know some people might be like, okay, you know, let's go into the market, start our marketing, and then get the certification. The problem will be, you know, when you put your resume in the market, there are a lot of companies who maintain the resume databases. So in the resume database, your resume will be, you know, your resume will be loaded as the one without certification. So that's why, again, you know, of course, everybody's resume gets improved. But if you have at least two before going into the market, that'd be awesome. But you know, again, is it not possible to get a job without certification? Yes, it is definitely possible. But I think in Salesforce world, certifications and trailhead badges are treated highly. So just try to get couple. Let me just stop the recording.